Okay, we're on the second day of live questioning of Peter Francis, the undercover police officer from the SDS who infiltrated anti-racist groups and family justice campaigns between 1993 and 1997. He went whistleblower in 2010, making his evidence kind of unique, I guess. I'm joined by Eleanor Fairbrother from the Police Spies Out of Lives. What have you made of what we've heard from Peter Francis?
Well, it's really interesting to be here. I've not been here much at all, so I really wanted to come and see Peter Francis because I knew that it would be quite different from the other officers, and quite some of it is from a period that I wasn't involved in the period, but I heard. I know, like everyone else in this country knows about the tragedy with the Lawrence family and the campaign they've had to go through. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just shocking, right? To hear how these officers are, being very much sent in to find this information, which will be able to be used to undermine the family. And I've heard it before, but it's just really shocking to hear how much that is very much central to what Francis was doing.
Yeah, I mean, the question this morning so far has centered very much on his reporting on the Lawrence family campaign. It's very detailed in comparison to a lot of the questioning on other issues. Again, we have this thing with the inquiry where they pick certain issues and then they really focus in on them. One of the things was, was he tasked to infiltrate the Lawrence family? He said, well, no, that his managers knew that he wouldn't be able to directly infiltrate them. He was sent to infiltrate an anti-fascist group in Kingsway College, to infiltrate Youth Against Racism in Europe, and that, therefore he would be close enough in order to give these reports on the family justice campaigns, not just the Lawrences, others as well, but the Lawrences being the big one. He talked about some of the rumors that he reported, and he talked about how these wouldn't have been written down. There was quite an old school approach within the SDS, that like things that couldn't necessarily be proven or were rumor. I mean, he said that Doreen Lawrence didn't have her own registry file, so reporting the fact that he'd heard the rumor that she'd been out partying the night of Stephen Lawrence's murder, something which wasn't true, but she was at university, that he'd never knew else to write it down, so it would have just been already reported, and it would have been a sign within the SDS that there was intelligence finally coming from the Lawrence family campaign, because they didn't have any before. But you get the impression from Bart, this isn't good enough. They're looking for a smoking gun.
Yeah, but I found it really interesting, the fact that they don't write this stuff down. Why not? Why are they not writing it down? Because even if it isn't, even if it's a rumor, that's the start of, and then they can disprove it. Like, I had the feeling of also, were they not writing it down because they knew they shouldn't be going for this sort of information as well? And that is, kind of evidence of culpability, that the police knew what they were doing was wrong. But I mean, it was clear. It's clear that was the sort of information that they were looking for, and that Francis himself felt like that was, he was kind of starting to come up with the goods, and he felt like he was doing his job well when he was providing that information.
Yeah, very much. He talks about kind of the need to do well being his greatest downfall. He's a very different witness to any of the others we've seen, really. There's a lot of reflection. He stopped to kind of say he knew it was put to him that it was inappropriate to report this kind of thing on a grieving mother. He was like, yes, absolutely, and I apologize. He said, he'd been criticized by Doreen Lawrence for showing any empathy. Not showing any empathy. He said, I don't have any empathy. He said that his PTSD meant he's unable to express empathy, which was kind of strange. He was keen to correct some of the evidence we heard from Lewis, which was last week before, about the fact that he didn't wear a leather jacket. He'd been advised by animals, by which he meant the SDS officers who infiltrated the animal rights movement, not to wear leather, that he didn't like heavy metal, didn't wear slogan T-shirts, and really kind of pointed to Lewis as the source of the rumors, which we do get this situation at the inquiry where when there's disagreements between witnesses about how things happened, you kind of get this, it almost comes across as sour grapes, really, that, you know, well, he called me a fantasist. Well, I think he's a fantasist. But
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's really marked to me how different Francis is from other witnesses. And I, you know, that yeah, I hope it really sort of demonstrates how much this kind of the unit is still very much sticking together, and is you know, officers are coming here and you know, other officers are not talking frankly or candidly. They're just saying that they forget everything, and how much, yeah, the unit is still working together to kind of protect what it was doing. You know, at the time they were working to kind of be able to stay with keep on with their racist behaviour by kind of blackening the name of the Lawrence family, and now they're trying to be able to keep going with it by being by not talking forthrightly and actually not really being open to the inquiry and open giving their account frankly. So I hope the inquiry also sees the difference and reflects on it.
Absolutely. We had one suspension in the broadcast today. We were told it was a breach. We told it was a code red, which is a particularly high breach. And we sat around trying to work out what it could be. The time period in question referred to when Francis was talking about going through all the CCTV footage and stills footage of Dwayne Brooks on a demonstration where there was a rumor that he caused some sort of criminal damage, some property damage. And he said, oh, I'd done this before. I'd done this when I was in B Squad. And we went, oh, is it this? Is it this? As it turns out, there was no breach. That in fact, the breach was been a false alarm and there was no breach. But it really just showed the way in which that our police, we're so used to being police procedurals that are subject to restriction, that we thought, oh, must be something about the way in which they operate, some sort of thing about the tactics of the police. And there was this thing about like kind of just going through, you know, that he hears a rumor and then he goes away and watches hours and hours of CCTV footage and stills footage to try and pin down this evidence. You know, this isn't, though we talk about how we kind of find like, oh God, they just reported anything and whatever. They obviously were putting a huge amount of time and effort in to spy on people in a very like kind of detailed way. And
that must be really difficult for the Lawrence family to hear, that the police are putting in that much time to look for evidence, to blacken their campaign at a time where they weren't, you know, putting in the hours to find Stephen's murderers.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite interesting, actually. There was one sort of section where he said, Barr said to him, I just want a yes or no answer. Was there any request for intelligence to assist in the murder of Stephen Lawrence through the SDS? And he went, yes, with a caveat. And he said, well, kind of the caveat. And I think this kind of infers this is something to do with the other area, the area we aren't allowed to talk about in the inquiry. I think it's pretty obvious what that other area is. I'm kind of loath to actually say out loud what it is because it's kind of suggests that I might break restriction order, but it's obviously the other area of SDS deployment that would have been of interest around this that was not the left-wing involvement. I think that's obvious what I'm talking about. But that does make the evidence quite stunted. There's a lot of times where he names an officer by writing it down on a piece of paper, passing it forward. He goes, well, in the other area, it's a bit confusing, I think, for a lot of people, that.
Yeah, I found that particularly confusing just arriving this morning and sort of wondering, why I thought we were allowed to know officers' ciphers if we weren't allowed to know their names. So we're not even allowed to know that.
There are a limited number of officers who do not have a cover name, a real name released, but they also don't have a cipher. Their evidence is gisted, it is put together. HN86 at one point, so Peter Francis said that HN86's extreme racist tirades were to do with a previous posting. And that previous posting was referred to in this gisting that gists together all these officers in the other area, where he was in a violent and notorious violent and racist unit.
That's the police unit rather than...
Well, I mean, we're not allowed to say. It's a ridiculous situation, but yeah, okay. Yeah. It's only a short break. We should be going back in soon. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, except it's really interesting. Come on down.
Yeah, please come on. There's plenty of space in the public gallery. I'll do another video at lunchtime, but until then, thanks for joining.